Hi everyone, as promised I'm going to make you a video or two about how to key cite and how to update your case law research. I'm going to be walking through a few examples on this video. I'll try to get it all in one video, but it might spill on to a second video. We're going to look at three important themes and really important skills as to why it's important to do this. Number one, we're going to see what it means to update the case that you are reading, because we need to make sure that that case is still good law. And remember, the two important pieces of is my case still good law is what we call the case itself direct history. So for example, if you're reading a case from a intermediate level, like a Massachusetts appeals court level, we need to make sure that that case itself was not overturned on appeal to a higher court. So that's part one of is my case still good law. The second part to is my case still good law refers to whether other future court decisions or legislation have changed that law. And we use the example of Costa versus Red Sox. Costa versus Red Sox is a 2004 decision. So what has happened from 2004 to the present? Is there another case that came in and changed the state of the law? Did the legislature change the law in this area? We need to know that as well. So those are the two parts of is my case still good law. After that, we're going to move to two other important points of why we update our case law research. The second point is just to find out generally, are there more current cases on this area of law since my case has been decided? In other words, what future cases have cited the case that I am reading before me today? If Costa versus Red Sox is a 2004 decision, we're talking about close to 20 years have gone by since that time. Which courts have cited Costa since that time as precedent? That will help us better understand this area of law. And also we would want to know if there's more cases out there on our same research topic. We'll also want to know not just are there more cases out there on our same research topic, but how do future cases treat the Costa case as precedent? Do they follow Costa? Like they say, yes, Costa was correctly decided. We're going to apply that same principle of law here. Do they say, well, Costa was a really important precedent, but we are distinguishing our case here, meaning our current, future case is a little different. So maybe the case comes out differently. And we don't really know that until we take a look at those future cases. The last important piece of this research puzzle is something that I really like to call that one good case theory. That if you become proficient in learning how to take the case that's in front of you, key cite it, shepherdize it, make sure it's still good law, and you read all the cases that cite it, or not read all the cases that cite it, but make sure you've seen the leading cases that cite it. We also are going to learn how to use the headnotes in your case to even research cases that happened before your cited case. So I may not get to all of that on this one video. I may have to make a second video, but those are the 3 points that I want to review. So let's just go through example by example. First, I'm going to show you a couple of cases and the tools that Westlaw has on it. When we talk about the question of whether a case is still good law, the first thing we want to know, remember, is has my case been overturned? Has the law changed? So the most simple thing to do is actually to look up the case, and I'm just going to start with Commonwealth versus Nutter by typing in the citation. And here pops up Commonwealth versus Nutter. You can see that next to the word Commonwealth versus Nutter, and nowhere on this page is any sort of red or yellow flag. There's no flag at all. So right away, that will let you know my case is still good law. This case itself has not been overturned. You can see that Nutter is an appeals court decision, which means there is a higher court above it, the Supreme Judicial Court, but no Supreme Judicial Court decision has overturned Nutter, nor has the legislature made a change in this area of the law. So right away, I can give it a thumbs up. I already know if I want to, I can cite this case in a court brief. Okay, well, that's great to know. So what if we see this instead? What if we see what we call the red flag? And I'll pull up an example of that as well. This is the case Sullivan versus Town of Brookline. So I'll let that load. When we see the red flag, it's like seeing a red light or a stop sign. It means stop. And I'll say this, I said it in class, but I'll say it again slowly. A red flag means that my case, and when I say my case, I mean the one that I'm researching, this Sullivan case, is not good law for at least one point of law in it. At least one point of law from Sullivan has been changed or overturned after Sullivan. Sullivan is a 1994 decision. So what we're asking ourselves by looking at this red flag is, what happened to this legal topic, this subject matter, since 1994? Something changed. Now, we don't know what that something is until we read Sullivan, and we have to look at the negative treatment. Now, on Westlaw, you can click on negative treatment, or if you really feel like you just want to look at that one case, or sometimes it's a statute that overrules the Sullivan case, you can actually click right here because Westlaw will tell you which is the negative case. Both of these will take you to Papadopoulos. So why did I say that Sullivan is overturned or overruled for at least one point of law? It is because cases often have multiple points of law that the judges are deciding. There has to be at least that one legal issue. You're familiar from your case briefing exercise. What is the legal issue? Sometimes courts are asked in one case to decide 3 legal issues. If only one of those legal issues is overturned on appeal or changed by a statute, then the red flag will still appear. What this means is, if you have, let's say Sullivan has 2 legal issues in it, you would need to read Sullivan and read Papadopoulos to make sure it's not your point of law that's been overturned. And what it means is, let's say Sullivan has another point of law that hasn't been overturned. You can actually still cite Sullivan. You just need to make sure you're citing it for a point of law that has not been overturned. I'll give you a little hint too. Remember the point of headnotes and how headnotes summarize all the points of law in a case? If we go to negative treatment, notice that, and you can pause the video here to take a look, but notice that Westlaw gives us a grid of information. The treatment, meaning what happened in Papadopoulos? How did Papadopoulos treat Sullivan? Well, it overruled it. And then we have 2 other cases that use the word distinguished. Distinguished, again, means the case came out differently, but not a direct overrule. So we'd want to read it and find out. But look over here to the far right. I pointed this out in class also. See the numbers that say headnotes? These headnote numbers refer to the headnotes in Sullivan that are now being addressed in Papadopoulos. I'll say that again. These headnote number 2, headnote number 3, and headnote number 4. And down here you see headnotes 2 and 3 and 4. These are the headnotes in Sullivan that have been overruled. These are the points of law that are overruled in Papadopoulos. The reason I point this out is if you have a very long case with, let's say, 20 or even 30 headnotes, and you see a red flag for that case and you say, oh my goodness, my case has been overturned for one of these points of law, I just don't know which point of law it is, you can get a preview as to what point of law it is by looking at the headnotes under your key citing. And then you can tell yourself, oh, it's these points of law, the ones that are in headnotes 2, 3, and 4. Now, as a good and thorough researcher, I would still expect you to read all of these cases, especially if you read Sullivan and you were like, oh, I want to use this case and then I want to read Papadopoulos. Don't just assume by reading, this is accurate, but this does not tell you everything. You still don't know what Brookline versus Town of Sullivan is about. You don't know what Papadopoulos is about, other than seeing these words slip and fall here. I mean, that's really all you can see. So these are tools to help you understand what's happened with these cases, but they don't absolve you of the responsibility of reading the cases yourself. Okay, so now we see what the red flag is. Let's just pull up one more case, our good old friend Costa versus Red Sox, so we can see what we mean by yellow flag. So remember, no flag, red flag, and then yellow flag. Yellow flag is kind of a bane of our existence, really, because it tells us that there is some negative treatment, but my case hasn't been overturned. My case, legislation hasn't changed my case. So the quick answer to yellow is that most likely my case is still good law. But here's why yellow doesn't mean 100%. We need to see, as researchers, what is the negative treatment. Because if every future case after Costa gave Costa a thumbs up and said Costa's, a great case, we follow it, really legally sound, we'd see no flag at all. So what this means is somewhere along the way, one or more future court decisions cast a doubt on Costa or came out differently than Costa. Again, that doesn't mean we can't use it. We just need to know what court said what. What future court after 2004 said something negative about Costa as precedent. So, how do we do that? Well, again, we can go right to the negative treatment button. If you remember, or if you want to pause here and click back, there was no negative treatment button for Commonwealth versus Nutter. It had no negative history at all. So if we say to ourselves, uh-oh, there's some negative treatment here, let's just see what it is before I move any further. We click on negative treatment, and Westlaw will default to give us any and all of that negative treatment. And this is what we looked at in class. The case that gave Costa versus Red Sox negative treatment. What does that mean? It means this case, Mason Nave versus Newark Bears Professional Baseball Club, cited Costa as a precedent, obviously persuasive, and said, we must come out differently. Now I look at this, and the first thing I notice by looking at the citation is that it's in the Atlantic Reporter, and it's from the state of New Jersey. So I should be thinking back to one of my first lessons from legal research and writing, that this is only persuasive. If I'm here in Massachusetts, if I'm in New Jersey, it's mandatory. So the fact that one New Jersey court didn't follow a Massachusetts appeals court precedent, do I even want to spend time reading it? I could, but it's not mandatory or persuasive. I mean, it's not mandatory for me. It's only persuasive. So I might skip over that entirely. I might take a look at this second decision down here, which is a U.S. District Court case. It's not cited in a reporter. It's that low-level trial court. So even if it's cited Costa, it still doesn't have any precedential value on anyone else. So I might take a quick look at it, but I'm not going to be worried about seeing these two negative treatment, because neither one of them is persuasive on me. Neither one of them is mandatory on me. What I might want to do instead is just see who else has cited Costa and why. Okay, so that's a summary of the no flag, the red flag, and the yellow flag. I can't believe that already took me 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop here, but on the next video, I'm going to go through this button here, the citing references, because that's the one that will tell you all the other courts that have cited your case since it was published. So we'll move on to that on the next video.